this video is going to be an update on Grocery Outlet, ticker symbol GO, and there's just been a lot of updates, especially regarding institutional ownership that I want to talk about, and also current events, and also we're going to talk about the news as well. So Grocery Outlet, a big part of my thesis, what I've been harping on for the past month or two, is we saw Grocery Outlet's institutional ownership at 130% of the float. And I'm saying, why is the stock is dropping, and yet institutional ownerships are buying? So what gives? And recently, most institutions have already filed their 13Fs for Q4. So what happened in Q4? I'm assuming most people would be thinking, well, I mean, they probably saw the stock drop, and the stock has dropped in Q4 and late Q3. So the people are probably selling, right? Well, let's look. So this is Whale Wisdom. I would show you my app, but my app that I implemented, I don't trust myself as much as I trust Whale Wisdom, right? So let's look at what happened in Q4. 13F shares increased by 3.2 million shares. Institutional ownerships has risen by 3.2 million shares. We were already at 130% institutional ownership. The float is only 98 million. The total shares outstanding, 98.1 million. How do institutions own almost 125 million shares? You might be looking at all the other numbers. Oh, look, funds holding, it dropped. It doesn't matter, right? Oh, look, hedge funds dropped. It doesn't matter. They also have to file 13Fs. What mattered? Institutional ownership in total rose by 3 million shares. You scroll down. Maybe some people didn't file yet. Let's sort. Okay, so this is sorted by most recent. Let's sort by least recent, right? Least recent. Filed 1/5, so January 5th. So this person, and they dropped their shares by 2.7, right? That was the earliest filed 13F on file. And that means this was reported for Q4. So that means this number is for Q4, right? And that's it, right? So there are no more people left to file. I don't understand. Let's look at the big changes, right? Big changes and small changes and bad changes, right? So Goldman, I don't know what that is. That's not Goldman Sachs. I don't know what J Goldman is. Morgan Stanley dropped by half, about half, right? Here you have a lot of big numbers, right? A lot of sells, right? Some people are selling out completely, right? 300K, 200K, 1.1K, 1.1 mil, 1.3 mil, 2.5 mil, 2.1 mil, that's a big number, right? Let's look at the other version, right? Let's look at the other way around. Increase, I talked about T Rowe already, increased their share count by 5.5 million shares. UBS, FMR, right? These people own a lot of the company. Let's look at how much. Again, there's a total percentage of 100% that you can have of a company, right? 16 plus 15 is 31, right? So we'll just say this is 30. We'll say this is about 45, 55. We'll say this is 60, right? 65. What number was I? 65. We'll say this is 75, right? There's 75%. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 85%. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 95%. In the first page alone, you already have some 96% ownership of the damn company. Yeah. What do you want me to say? Let's look at the short position, right? What happened to the short? People are shorting. People have to be shorting, right? So starting from here, right? So Jane Street sold out. Jane Street are like the most infamous shorters, right? They're the ones that people are alleging have been shorting Bitcoin every day, right? They sold out of their position, right? And you actually have a net gain in short interest in fund shorting Grocery Outlet, right? This one increased by some 20k shares, another 10k shares, but they do more like a short long. If you look at their 13Fs, they do like a short long. Citadel increased by like 120k shares. Susquehanna dropped by 100k shares. So Susquehanna is also a big shorting company, right? They sold out. I think they only had like 30k shares or something like that, so that's not that big. And they increased. They started their position. They started a they started a put position short about 47,000 shares, or representing 47,000 shares. So short interest isn't really moving too much. It's increasing a little bit, but not compared to how much the total ownership is rising, right? And you might be like, oh well, I mean, some of those are options, right? I counted out of all these companies, only about 500,000 shares are in put positions. So that means that even if you account for the 500,000, still 124.3 million shares out of 98 million shares outstanding. Dude, what is happening? Am I crazy? What? So those are just the institutional positions. Let's look at, I guess, sentiment and things like that, right? So let's look at the news. So this is just news that came out. I didn't do anything. Oh, past week, okay? Grocery Outlet, New Falls Church store offers deep discount. So that's talking about a new store that popped up, right? New grocery store in Citrus Heights. This is positive sentiment, right? This is just stock news. This is positive sentiment, right? This is, again, more new stores. Here's just more stock news, right? More stock news. Guys, they keep growing. I know it's a freaking grocery store. Why are you so... They're growing, and they're, in my opinion, undervalued. I understand it's a grocery store. Why am I investing in a grocery store when you can invest in Nvidia or Palantir or Microsoft or Meta? They're growing, right? It doesn't change the fact that they're growing. And 130% institutional ownership. Does that make sense in anyone's head? It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't, right? So one thing about Grocery Outlet, like, what makes it different from why don't you invest in Walmart then, or why don't you invest in Target, right? Again, as I said before, their branding is the type, in my opinion, is a type, almost a moat, because it's not necessarily the branding that's a moat, because branding can be a fad. It's what the branding means, right? Grocery Outlet is known for having the opportunistic pricing model. And in the opportunistic pricing model, people see Grocery Outlet as the first place they should go to when they're going grocery shopping, because they want to find those hidden gem deals, the things that are marked down 60, 70, 80, 90% of like, for example, you'll see a lot of like newer, more hip brands, like the high protein cereals, or like the vegan, whatever the hell that people vegans eat or whatever, right? Like things that are actually look really nice that you would maybe want to try, but then if they're sold at the Safeways or the Walmarts or the Targets, they're gonna cost you an arm and a leg. But then those companies later realize that no one has money to pay to shill out an arm and a leg. So then they have all this bulk that no one bought. They sell it to Grocery Outlet, and the Grocery Outlet sells it to you for $1.97 or 97 cents. And then smart shoppers, right? Price conscious shoppers, which, if you believe again in the K-shaped economy, you would think that people, as times get more tough, right? As people start having to pinch pennies, or pinch nickels now, I guess, because I'm rambling. As people have to start pinching pennies, then they're gonna go to the more price wise, or the more price sensitive store. Was that the right phrase? Whatever. The cheaper stores. Right. And the other thing about Grocery Outlet that I really, really like is Grocery Outlets, their fundamental model of how they franchise their stores is different from the likes of Target or Walmart. Grocery Outlet, they don't have to deal with So they have this, the way they do their business is they don't franchise. They actually have an independent operator model where what happens is that they basically license their brand to someone, right? And then to that person is the owner of their store, right? Maybe they'll give a loan. Maybe Grocery Outlet will give a loan. They'll do some like teaching or some training classes, and then that person is the owner of their store, and it's more commission based. So Grocery Outlet, they source all the groceries, and they sell it, and then there's basically a catalog, and they sell it to those independent operators, and then Grocery Outlet doesn't hire these people, right? Like they kind of hire the, it's not even, it's more like a contract, right? They hire basically a sales rep to help manage the stores, to help like stack the stores. But then those independent operators, they hire their own staff, right? So then if you think about it, if imagine you're a manager or a store manager at Walmart versus a store manager at Grocery Outlet. The store manager at Walmart, maybe they'll get a sales bonus, but whether or not you buy something doesn't really affect the store manager at Walmart or at Target. But then if you're an independent operator that has their own Grocery Outlet, it's more of a profit sharing model where, let's say, I don't know the percentages specifically, but I think it's 50-50. But you source your materials from Grocery Outlet, right? They give it to you. You fill up your store with their groceries and their whatever they're selling, and then whatever you sell, right? You get we'll say you get, after you basically send that profit to Grocery Outlet. Grocery Outlet deducts the rent, that stuff, right? Because all the leases and all the lighting and stuff like that, that's dealt with Grocery Outlet. But then after that, right, then the overall profit is split 50-50 by Grocery Outlet, and I think it's 50-50, right? So overall profit is split 50-50 by Grocery Outlet and the independent operator. So that independent operator is more worried, or like they're gonna care more that you buy your stuff, right? So that means they can buy things that they believe is more catered to their community, right? Let's say you live in a predominantly Asian community, or you live in a predominantly Hispanic community, or a predominantly Black community, right? Then you can buy things from Grocery Outlet that are more catered towards what you need, and so you don't have to buy the things that you know that your customers won't buy, right? Additionally, does the store manager at Walmart give a crap if someone steals from Walmart? They probably care a little bit, but not as much as a store manager who has to. They split the earnings and they split the losses with Grocery Outlet, right? So then the independent operator cares more about shoplifting. That's why you see these trends. There's a news article before, but then there was one Grocery Outlet that implemented like facial recognition in their store because first of all, it's legal in their specific area, right? Because facial recognition in stores isn't legal around in the entire US, right? But it might be legal in certain places, certain states, certain counties, right? So that's another benefit. But the independent operators are more motivated to minimize shoplifting and to increase the amount of people shopping at their store, because they share in the profit, right? They basically earn a commission. So I just think that their model is really, really interesting, especially if you subscribe to capitalism, where you believe that, people are motivated by their own profits, right? If you're just getting a wage, like a manager or like a store clerk or whatever, right? Maybe you don't care that much that this company succeeds, but you basically own that specific part of Grocery Outlet. So you care that your specific building succeeds, right? So I don't know, I'm just been rambling at this point for 15 minutes, but last thing, Grocery Outlet, their earnings are on March 6th. Let me just make sure. March 4th, sorry, Wednesday, March 4th. So that's something I'm looking forward to. They had some one-time costs that they had to deal with last quarter, which is why the stock dropped so much. Sorry, I forgot to mention that their margins are actually higher than the likes of Target and Walmart. It's just that because they're spending so much money on basically CapEx, right? They have to grow. they're looking for new leases, right? That's where a lot of their money is going. But hey, so March 4th, look for that. Otherwise, I've just been rambling for now like 20 minutes. So, but March 4th, right? That's the earnings call. Look forward to that. I'm whether or not I'm right or wrong. Grocery Outlet has been like my better performer in the past 3 weeks. This sell-off is no bueno, but that's it. This video is on Grocery Outlet. Ticker symbol GO. 130% institutional ownership makes absolutely no sense. Maybe I'm reading something wrong, but that's it. All right, peace. Bye.